Well, we're very fortunate to have Dr. Sue Ballyn with us from the University of Barcelona. So, Sue, what has brought you to a Cultural Studies conference?
What has brought me here is the fact that in Spain there is no Cultural Studies Association.
Right.
Well, there is a very small one with about 20 members, but there's nothing really big on a national level. Cultural Studies are not included as a streamline within the undergraduate curriculum for English majors, and there's no Spanish-speaking Cultural Studies Association, and it's a complete gap, I believe, in what we need to have within the Spanish Academy in the Humanities.
Okay, so would you think of your own work sort of fitting within the broad realm of cultural studies?
Yes, I would, because obviously I've worked for the last, 20, 30 years in post-colonial studies, because Barcelona University was the first place outside England to start post-colonial studies. So I would consider my work as being within cultural studies. But in Spain, I'm classified as a post-colonialist,
right,
not a cultural studies person.
Oh, very important distinction then. More broadly speaking, what would you think is sort of the value or importance of cultural studies to yourself?
The importance of cultural studies, not just to me, but I think to the Academy, is that it allows for a huge intersection of diversity across disciplines. It allows for very profound discussions of both academic material, but also the politics that are going on within universities. And I think it's fundamental to have this kind of association in these kind of meetings, and I find it extraordinarily refreshing to be here because there's nothing like it at home.
That's great to hear, and we've got a nice sunny day as well, so that's really good. In terms of students, what do you think the value of cultural studies is for undergraduate students in the classroom?
Well, I think exactly the same. If we were to have a cultural studies stream running through, say, English majors or Spanish majors, what it would give them would be a completely open horizon onto a diversification of subject matters that they could lock into. At the moment, we're just sort of, within English departments, we're just working on English. We're not looking across at geography or history or anthropology or anything like that. It's not happening. And cultural studies would open all that up to students, and I think it's extremely valuable, and I think we have to somehow get ourselves to think in that direction.
So interdisciplinarity as one key criterion. What about critical thinking?
Well, also critical thinking. I mean, obviously, if you're doing cultural studies, in order to engage with cultural studies, you've really got to think critically, teach yourself to, or be taught how to think critically, and to engage with subject matters that will jolt you out of a comfortable position. Whereas, for example, English studies, I don't think does that. Post-colonial studies does, but I don't think English studies as such does.
So disrupting the familiar and the comfortable.
Absolutely, and I think it's very necessary.
That's great to hear. I guess another thing we're interested in relation to the theme of this conference is also the role or the function of the university. And in previous interviews, we've also spoken to others about perhaps the difference between what is and what ought be. What are your views on the role of university in society in Spain and or Australia?
Well, I think obviously universities are fundamental to society. If we are turning out students who are able to engage with the world into which they're going, if we're going to produce students who are going to sit in an ivory tower and go into secondary school teaching, there's nothing wrong with going into secondary school teaching, but just sit there and not get their students to socially engage with the world outside the classroom, then I think we're not doing our job properly. Universities have to engage with the wider community. We are doing that in Spain, but I think we need to do more of it.
And in terms of how the university is, I guess, bounded by governmental regulation, by public policy, how do you feel about that? And have you observed any changes in recent years, perhaps?
Well, yes, obviously, because we've just moved into the Bologna plan, as you know. And that, in a sense, was disruptive because we lost a lot of the gains that we had made since the last reworking of the academic curricula.
What type of gains?
We'd made gains with the previous plan of academic studies in that there was a huge range of optional subjects for the students to do. That has now gone. The range of optional subjects is very, very narrow indeed. And we're doubly bound by, shall we say, the policies that come from ministries, because we're bound by the policies that are coming out of Madrid, the Ministry of Education, but then we're also bound to a certain extent by the policies that come out of each autonomous community regarding universities. And in terms of the Bologna plan, a certain amount, in fact a large amount, was put into place by the ministry, and then each university had a certain amount of autonomy, but I don't think that we were given enough autonomy about what we could do within the curricula of the Bologna plan.
And I guess more generally speaking, what do you feel is sort of the do universities matter? What is their core in this time and in this place?
I think universities do matter, but only as I'm strongly committed to the fact that universities have to reach out towards the community. There has to be a connection with the community, and they matter for that reason. If not, then they're not doing their job properly. I'm well aware of the work that Southern Cross is doing with the community and in the community, and that kind of engagement I think is partially lacking in what we're doing at home. I really think universities have a function, and that function is to work with and in the community.
Great. Thank you so much, Sue Ballyn, for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you for having me.
Great.